I stepped away from pastoring. I worked with some Brazilian pastors in church planning, and I was involved that way. But I also taught in a Bible institute there, training up younger men. Connie and I read the scriptures. We see that, he definitely leads people together in divine providence.
What a beautiful love story. I can't believe this.
She started reading my book, He Is, and then I was reading her book, Look Around, 10 observations that lead to one conclusion. Connie Cook, who was a Christian author, and she asked for my book. I sent it to her by PDF. Her response was, "This looks excellent," and she was looking forward to reading it.
This is the Christian Readers Community Podcast.
A quiet whisper in the night so near, stories of faith that draw you here. The words unfold like morning's glow, a place of truth where hearts will grow. A gentle breeze that turns the page, wisdom passed through every age. Come gather around and take your seat, the Christian Reader's Tales complete.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Readers Community Podcast. My name is Fifty Jiga, and I am back with another author, Mark Worden. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you. Glad to be with you today.
Thank you so much. It's so excited to have you because I read your story and I read a little about you, and I'm so excited to discuss you and your book, and of course one other person that I would definitely love. I would like you to speak about her by yourself. Okay. Yeah. So there's a very interesting story you told me about yourself and your wife. So, yeah, I would like you to talk to us about that.
Okay, well, I spent some time in Brazil as a missionary many years ago, and then I pastored a small church in rural Montana for 6 years, and then I stepped away from full-time ministry, doing some handyman work, repair and building type work, and then it kind of morphed into a property management business. But during that time, I went through a devastating unwanted divorce with my wife at that time, and so I went through a real time struggle and got a lot of good counseling from my local church, from some pastors, some people in the church that kind of took me in, and an older couple, and so I found a lot of healing, and through that healing, I worked on the book He Is that I published in 2022 in July. I think it was July 27th of 2022, and I started to feel like there might be a new relationship with me and for me in the future, that God might bring a special person into my life. I had a number of people praying for that, and so anyway, I began offering my book as a free PDF in a Facebook author group, Christian author group, in January of 2023. And so one of the responses was a woman up in Canada, Connie Cook, who was a Christian author. And she asked for my book. I sent it to her by PDF. Her response was, "This looks excellent." And, she was looking forward to reading it. And so then I looked her up on Amazon and started looking at her books, and I bought 3 of her books. And so she started reading my book, He Is, and then I was reading her book, Look Around, 10 observations that lead to one conclusion. And so her book starts more from a philosophical point of view, looking at, what do we see in our world, and then it kind of ends with the conclusion was that there's a creator God that loves us and cares for us, and he's communicated to us through the Bible. And so it's kind of an introduction to the Christian faith, coming from the perspective of someone kind of searching for truth and peace and a relationship with God if he existed. And so I at that point, I realized this is the perfect prequel to my book, He Is, which is an in-depth study in the Bible looking at the God is statements. And that's based on the verse Hebrews 11:6, which says, without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. And so my book is a challenge for people to dive into the scriptures and look at the God is statements, how God reveals himself, so that we know God for who he reveals himself to be, not what we think God may be like. And so anyway, she was reading my book, I was reading her book, and we started corresponding. And eventually I went up to Canada to meet her, and then she came down to my hometown and met my church family. I met her church family, and then I went back up in July, and at that point I put a ring on her finger because she said yes when I had asked her to marry me.
Wow, what a beautiful love story. What a beautiful love story. I can't believe this. I think you're one of the first authors, or maybe I should say you're the only author I know who connected to his wife through books, or connected with his wife through books. This is just wonderful. So you've both co-authored books since then, right?
So the second book I read from Connie Cook was a memoir about her and her mother called May and Me. Her mom's name's May, and so just the title May and Me. And so right now we're working on a sequel to that book called Mark and Me, which will be the story of how God brought us together through our books. And even going back in our history, we see that God was preparing me for her and her for me, and we see God's sovereignty and his watch care and protection over us, even going back to our early years in life. So I guess one of the key things that we believe, about life is that the purpose of life is to know and be known in loving relationships with God and others. And that's one thing I saw in her writing, that she had that same belief about the purpose of life that I had. And that really drew me to her. And so I really fell in love with her on the second read, which was the book May and Me. And of course, by that time we were corresponding and getting to know each other, going through what we called, all the deal breakers and the non-negotiables. And we found that we were very compatible, and, we're serious about our relationship with Christ and growing together and sharing the gospel through our writing and reaching people for the Lord. And so, we knew that God had a purpose for us coming together in marriage. And now we've taken her book, Look Around, and, married it to my book, He Is, and we just republished it under a new title. So it's the two volumes coming together, married together in the book called Quest, Exploring the Christian Faith with Mark and Connie Worden.
Beautiful. When is Mark and Me coming out?
Maybe, we don't know yet. So I've written all my chapters, and now we're just waiting on Connie, because we're alternating chapters in Mark and Me. And there'll be about, I think, 20 chapters. And so Connie has the first couple her chapters written, and then she's just waiting for the Lord's timing as far as her finishing her chapters. We're actually getting ready for a big move right now. We've been living down in the States, in Montana, and then we're going to be moving up to Canada at the end of this month. And so I'm going through the immigration process to move to Canada with a permanent resident visa, which has been approved. And so basically we just have to move up there to her hometown, which is just 7 miles over the border from the United States, above Idaho.
I really can't wait to hear the story from her own, side. So that I'd like to know, how this whole thing happened and how it made her feel. But I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
What's your take on divine providence? Do you believe that it was God who brought you both together, and why? Or do you think that, okay, I found her, she found me, we're both, compatible, and well, we both thought we could do this, and so we started this journey?
Hmm. Yeah. So, when we were, you know, getting to know each other, we read several books. You know, as we were, moving towards marriage and preparing for that, we went through some good counseling, and we look back, and we definitely believe in God's divine providence and His leading. I'm trying to remember there's a book that we read by Gary Friesen, and I'm trying to remember the name of that book right now. But that book goes into that, question about God's, free will for us, and His sovereignty, and that was a good read. And so, he kind of takes the position that, God gives us choices in life, and we need to take the wisdom out of the Bible to make wise choices. And he doesn't feel like sometimes that God he leaves it open. God's open will based upon our choice. But yet, as Connie and I read the scriptures, we see that He definitely leads people together in divine providence. And so, Connie actually wrote a book called Symphony, and with the subtitle of divine. I'm going from memory here, but God's sovereignty through man's free will. And so she kind of grapples with that, man's free will and God's sovereignty. And it's a beautiful book. It's called Symphony. And so that's one of the books that was probably one of my favorite books as I've been reading my way. She's published over 27 books on her Amazon author page, and
Wow.
you can find those under Connie Cook. And then she's published 2 fiction books under the name Connie Cook Worden, and then we just published the Quest: Exploring the Christian Faith with Mark and Connie Worden, and that's on her author page too there at Amazon. So you can find her on Amazon through typing in the name Connie Cook, and then also Connie Cook Worden.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you how many books she's published. I've answered it. So how many have you published?
So I just published He Is, the devotional book, and then the second book, co-authoring with Connie, the Quest: Exploring the Christian Faith with Mark and Connie Worden. So I'm the co-author on that. Each of us have, one book that she wrote in that one, and one book I wrote. So.
Okay. The besides publishing Mark and me, is there any other works in progress?
Yeah, Connie has several. She's working on I think the 5th book in a series of Bible studies that she's done, and then she's doing something really interesting with those Bible studies. She's writing a young adult fiction book to go with those, and it's very, very interesting stories. She's not preachy in her fiction at all, but she really tries to get people thinking about eternity, about God's sovereignty and God being involved in their lives, and that God speaks to us through creation, through His Word. And so yeah, those would be good books, especially for young adults, teens. And I've read them. I love them. I'm 65 years old, and I love her fiction writing, Christian fiction.
Oh, I love Christian fiction too. I love reading Christian fiction. I think I'm more of a Christian fiction fan than non-fiction. No offense to you and every non-fiction writer out there.
Yeah. Sometimes the fiction really helps us to get biblical principles out, to see how it works in people's lives, and when you're creating a personality, a character, you can see that person grow as they interact with other people, as they grow closer to God. So fiction is very powerful.
Yes.
It reaches the heart sometimes more than a nonfiction book can. So I love reading Christian fiction too.
You used to be a missionary to Brazil. What started
Yes.
you on this writing journey?
My writing journey, like writing the book He Is. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. From being a missionary to a writer.
In Brazil, I worked with some Brazilian pastors in church planning, and I was involved that way. But I also taught in a Bible institute there, training up younger men into ministry, and just that love for teaching. I have a degree in teaching Bible, and a master's degree, and so I love teaching the Bible, and breaking it down in simple ways, so that I try not to use grandiose theological terms, and just try to break it down into words that anybody could understand. And I sometimes introduce some theological words in my book He Is, but I break it down. And so I got my master's degrees at that time, and then I pastored for 6 years, and then I stepped away from pastoring, at that time, and I went back into some of my other skills, handyman work and building relationships. And even though I wasn't pastoring a church, I still had a pastor's heart, and I ended up praying and pastoring with lots of people, because people sometimes don't want to talk to a pastor, but they'll talk to a handyman.
Oh.
And so I'm just a common handyman working in our community. They might know I used to be a pastor, but they just see me as a common person, and then I'm able to get into their lives, and they open up to me in ways that they wouldn't have maybe opened up to me when I had that pastor's title. And so I used to kind of call myself a pastor in disguise, and praying with people and ministering to them when they had prayer needs. And even though I wasn't pastoring a church, I still was doing lots of funerals and did some weddings for young people that were ready to make that commitment of marriage. And so, in ministry, it comes from your life. It's not just a title. A lot of times I think we err when we put that pastor title and lift pastors up. I think people need to see our humanity as well as our love for the Lord, and how God is working in us. I just been out on the boat, or maybe the car ride back on one of I'm a fishing guide now in the summers, and I was talking with one man, and he asked me what was a significant passage in the Bible that meant a lot to me. And the verse that I shared with him was Ephesians 2:8, 9, and 10, which says, this is another verse, but not by works of righteousness that we have done, but according to his mercy he saves us. And then Ephesians 2:8, that says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And so, that last phrase there, that God prepared beforehand, means that for every one of us that come into a saving relationship with God through Jesus, our mediator, the one who paid it all on Calvary's cross to pay the penalty of our sin, and takes that enmity away between us and God, where we can have peace and fellowship with God. We are his workmanship, and he has prepared for every one of us the giftings that he gives us, to serve him, but also other Christians and other people in the world that don't even know the Lord. And so we're his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before prepared that we should walk in them. And so that's that divine sovereignty, where God is gonna lead us into places of ministry, because he has a plan for us.
Wow. Why did you say earlier that people trust, or people open more to a handyman than their pastor? You got me curious when you said that.
Well, I think that there's kind of a maybe more so here in the United States. There's a stigma that you know pastors are maybe too good, or they don't care about you. They're you can't relate with them because they're not part of the real world. So I think so basically when you're there in somebody's house and you're working right beside them working on a project because they hired you as a handyman, you're working side by side. And I think here in the United States, people may either put pastors on a pedestal, holding them way up high, or they think very poorly of him. The opposite extreme, where they have no respect for a pastor because maybe they had a pastor in their background that they knew that really disappointed them. But when you work side by side together on a project in their home, they get to know you as a real person. And then they open up and you're able to minister to them in ways that the wall was up before because you might have had that pastor's title, but now you're just a common handyman. So you can build a relationship with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like they're seeing you in them, but a pastor is on this high pedestal that they're unable to, relate with him. Wow, I never knew people, saw it that way. Although I've seen it in some cases, I didn't really think of it in a general term. That was maybe something personal with, some people. Yeah. So would you like to tell us about any other books you've written?
Well, just the new book that just was published last week was Quest: Exploring the Christian Faith, and again that's bringing Look Around together with the book He Is into one volume, and that's available with in paperback and then also a Kindle version. And so that's we're probably going to put that up again for a free book, coming up. It was free for about 3 or 4 days, and then a lot of our friends and people got it for free. We're doing this for ministry. We don't want finances to be a barrier for people getting our books. In fact, if someone wants to reach out to me, I would send the PDF version of my book He Is. I just give that away to anybody who wants it. I gave you a copy, the PDF version, and you have my permission to give that PDF version away to anybody who could be blessed by it and encouraged in their walk with God.
Yeah, for anyone who'd like to get a copy of this book, just go to the description section. There's the show notes, and you would see the link, a PDF drive link, where you can download a copy of the book so that you'd read it and, probably reach out to Mark after reading and share with him how the book impacted your life. So yeah, Mark, if someone wants to get your book, I know you said it's live on Amazon, so would like to hear your name again.
Sure, yeah. So it's Mark R. Worden. I use my middle initial as my author name, Mark R. Worden, because there's another Mark Worden that publishes on Amazon, and then there's also another Connie Cook that publishes. So you have to find the Christian Connie Cook when you're looking on the Amazon page for her books. But then also she's starting to publish books under Connie Cook Worden as well. And so you can find our Amazon pages. And if you wanted to go to our website, it's www.heisministries.net. And so I'll say that again. It's www.heisministries.net. And at that site, you can, we have links to all the Amazon pages. Also, some of Connie's books have been turned into Audible books.
Oh.
And then He Is also an Audible book. And we're, there's links to our YouTube channels. Connie has a YouTube channel, and I have a YouTube channel as well. And there's links to the YouTube channels, and we're posting those audiobooks to listen to for free on our YouTube channels. So people don't have to buy the expensive Audible version of the the audio
The
books.
book, yeah.
They can get them for free through our YouTube channels.
Beautiful. I'm gonna check you out on YouTube so that I'll listen to your books.
Did I send you the links to the YouTube channels?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll send those to you. And so we'll just get all the links to you, and you can
Sure.
post them there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mark. I've had a very wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to another episode. If you learned a lot, like I did, listening to Mark, please get a copy of his book, visit his website, and follow him. And, they have a very strong ministry going on, and I hope it impacts your life. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Until I come your way again next time, I'm saying stay safe, stay blessed, and bye bye, everyone.
Step into the light where hope is found. Voices of love with a peaceful sound. The Christian reader calls to thee, oh, hope is found. Voices of love with a peaceful sound. The Christian reader calls to thee, a warp is found. Voices of love with a peaceful sound. The Christian reader calls to thee, a world of grace and harmony.